I did just get an email from Jan. She's out of town and won't be able to connect. Or mark her. Yes. Is there really a different Jan? Another Jan besides our Jan Lindstrom?
No, I don't think so.
There's my wife, Jan.
That's true.
Okay, we won't, no disrespect for her, Grover, you're right. All right, well, welcome everybody. Yet another exciting task force meeting. We've been having some good ones lately. It's just so nice to see everything falling into place. And it's thanks to every single person here present that I think we can chalk that up. Spent some time this afternoon going through the other delivery we got in the last week or so, which was the big packet with the final, well, not the final, the draft master plan report. And for me, it was really exciting to go through and see, wow, we've been busy. We've gotten a lot done. You know, and our project team, of course, has done a lot of the detail work, but our group here, this task force, has really had to hammer out some things and put a lot of heart into what we've done, and so it made me proud to really read through that and to see where we've gotten to say, okay, this is what we're going to be showing to the commissioners and saying, look what we did. Isn't this cool? So looking forward to that. Business, we've got, our main goal tonight is just to go over the final report, hear what the design team has to say about it, and things they want to point out, and make sure we've got everybody's feedback on that. Make sure we feel like it really reflects what we want it to say, what we feel like the public wants out of it. So, and to make sure there isn't anything missing. Do we need to do a roll call tonight? We probably should. I don't know what on the details. So I think I dug up my roll. There it is. It's old, so if I forget, if I say somebody who's not here anymore, let me know. But Ron Campbell.
I'm here.
Yes, I saw you. Mark Elliott. Mark here?
Here, yeah,
Oh,
thank you.
Yep.
I'm here.
Surprise, Mark. Dennis Hickey.
I'm here.
Great. Hello, Dennis.
Hello.
Kim Parman.
Here.
Saw her. Hi, Kim. Rose Ojeda.
I'm here.
Hi, Rose.
Hi.
Mike Schmier.
Present.
We always know when Mike's around. That's a good thing.
Hey.
Christy Switzer.
Here.
I saw you. Yes, good. Michael Newgard.
Here.
Hello, Michael. Grover Bornefeld.
Present.
Jan Lindstrom, I said couldn't be here. Doug Jones, I'm certainly here. Shonda Wild.
Shonda is here. I think, Shonda, there? Can you unmute?
She's muted. There she goes. Hi, Shonda.
Hi, the mute keeps going on and off, and I've called 3 times and it's kicked me out already. So if I get lost.
Well,
I'll keep an eye on keeping you in the meeting.
But you're here.
We appreciate the extra effort in staying connected, Shonda.
Okay.
Paul Boundy.
Here.
Great. And Gary Bukowski.
Present.
Last but certainly not least. All right, welcome everybody. Hopefully you had a chance to look over the meeting notes from our last meeting. Are there any thoughts or comments on that before we make those official? It appears not, so let's.
Doug?
Yes.
Are you referring to this optional meeting or the last regular meeting?
No, the one from September 24th.
Okay.
I don't know if there were or are going to be any from the optional meeting. For those of you who weren't able to be there for the optional meeting, I felt it was really insightful, interesting, reassuring to know just what we're what's underneath all of that, and it was really helpful. So it was, I think all in all, a lot of questions got answered. Like I said, some good reassurances. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that, or if we want to take time for thoughts on that.
It was just great for us nerds.
Science geeks unite. Yes. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Catherine for updates on the project.
Okay, let me first introduce who's here from our team. We've got Candy Ho, wave Candy. Some of you, most of you probably know that Scott Archer took a job, sadly, as a city manager for Canby. So Candy Ho is taking on a lot of his responsibilities on an interim basis. So thank you for sitting in for, I guess, Scott forever. And we've got Ellen Rogalin, who's our hostess for the evening and does lots of things in the background for us, especially assists with writing and other special things. Mitzi's here. Where's Mitzi? Where'd she go? Oh, there she is. And Jessica's here, who is doing our meeting notes, and she's been doing them since she started. So thank you very much, Jessica. In terms of updates, let's see, what do we have? Doug, you mentioned we had the optional meeting. For any of you that missed it or want to go back and review it, it's on the web. The video is on the web. I think as Doug mentioned, it was reassuring that we learned, yes, there is an Oatfield fault. They did give guidance about building 50 feet away from the fault and felt that that would be a prudent thing to do. They also said that the amount of settlement from an event from liquefaction was 1 to 2 inches, and that's really good news because that's not very hard to design for. So that was good. And then I think the other memorable part I remember is that there hasn't been a seismic event there for at least 15,000 years. So that was reassuring as well. But maybe Gary, do you have any thoughts? I know this has been one of your topics of interest. Do you have any thing to report on that?
Nothing really. I was wanting to ask more questions, but then I thought, well, that would just delay things. So I thought better to keep quiet.
Well, we had 4 engineers in the room, so we had a lot of expertise there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's it for my updates. The design team has been working really hard, as you can tell on the report, and pulling a lot of things together. So we'll want to spend time talking about that.
Before we
So
go
back
any
to you,
further-
Doug. What?
Yeah, I was gonna say, before we go any further, just of note with the minutes for the September 24th meeting, just as you noticed, there was again attached the endorsement from Restore Oregon, which was also really great to hear. So we've been lucky to be continuing to be getting good news as we go along and having things moving pretty smoothly here, thanks to the work of a lot of folks even beyond our group here, not a little group, but our group. So it was nice to see that again. So just a reminder that that from all kinds of different angles, this project is looking pretty solid. So I think now, Jennifer, are we turning it over to you
Sure.
for your report? Sure, why not? Go ahead.
So tonight we have myself and Jim Calvledge, and Ray is here. I think I saw Ray on there. And Kurt Lango had all intentions of joining, but he had a run-in with a raccoon, so he's not here tonight. He's fine, but a little exhausted, I think. So we'll share any comments regarding park design as needed.
How's
So
the raccoon?
Pardon?
How's the raccoon?
I think the raccoon is just fine, but it sounds like he and the dog are also fine. But he did have to get a tetanus shot. So anyway, I don't know much more than
He's
that.
got a new coonskin cap for the winter.
I thought you got rabies shots for those kinds of encounters.
He might have gotten that too.
I think
don't
he
know.
did actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably did.
tetanus shot or something.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go ahead
Anyway.
and share my screen. And since you all had the chance to get the booklet delivered to your door, I'm not going to go through every single page. You all have it to refer to. But I do want to at least look at a couple pages and talk about a few things. And then Jim and Ray will be able to talk through some of the minor design changes that were done since the last time we all got together, and mostly on the ground floor, I think. So I'm going to show this way because I can zoom in on it while I'm going through it, and I can also see the pages I'm looking at. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to our table of contents. And as you probably understood as you looked through the booklet, the way we approached this was to really group this book into three major pieces. Obviously, we have an introduction and an executive summary that hits the high points of each of the critical pieces of this. But we spent time on really going into the project background. I mean, there's so much that's come into these projects, and there's so much history, so much knowledge that's already starting, that came to this project as it formed. So we wanted to make sure to touch on that, as well as the process of community engagement at a higher level, and the values that you all formed at the very beginning of the process. So that sets a good stage for us to introduce the recommended master plan. So we were able to really focus on, all the pieces that came together for us to arrive at that master plan design that we ended up getting as a recommendation, and touching on that and the pieces of design that were important to that specific option 2 that we ended up on. And then the process section is really the piece in here where we go into a little bit more detail about how we arrived at that. What did we go through this whole year? What were the more in-depth pieces of community outreach and design workshop that we had, the virtual open house, the results of those outreach efforts, how we evaluated all the sites and all the alternatives that we looked at, the criteria, and then, those key decisions that helped us arrive at a recommended plan. But the last section right here, the next steps, is really the one we want to focus on tonight. And I'm going to jump ahead to that because this is where we're really going to want to get your feedback and make sure that we've captured those things. Let's see, I'm going to get into a little bit bigger here. And you all can look at your own copy. You probably can't read this right here. But, since we've landed on the recommended option, there were a lot of things that we talked about that are really for the next stage. And so we want to make sure that, this is a document that captures all the things we did over the last year and a half, 2 years even for some of you, and becomes the starting point for the phases of design that we're going to jump into next. So this captures the feedback that we've heard from you kind of at a high level. We want to make sure that this is captured well, and if there are things that need to be added to this, we want to make sure to get that in there. And then we also have some library feedback. There were conversations that we've been able to have with staff, gotten their input. Those will also be starting points for the next phase. And then we did get feedback also from NCPRD on the community center recreation pieces. So this page is really, and we will add to this with additional comments from tonight to make sure that that is captured in what is recommended to the board. And then I think, the site plan is where we ended up. We really didn't change too many things, just cleaned up a few things based on a few comments. But I do want to have a little time, maybe Jim, you want to step in and talk about we did change a few things in this area, and I think if I can, just zoom into this because I think it'll be easier for everybody to see if I can do that. hopefully that's a little easier for you all to see.
Yeah, a few of the changes, and I think we discussed some of these at the last meeting, but we kind of formalized it here in this plan, which is from the library service point. Some of the feedback we got was that it's really important from that service point that you're able to look directly across to the restrooms. Restroom entry, it could be even at the doors or on the opposite side, but basically you have to have good vision to that. And so we reconfigured that area a bit by pushing the elevator a bit to the east. So it pushes back to open up that area. And what's actually really nice about it too is you get a larger lounge and lobby feeling as you walk into the space. So we think that's actually a really pretty major improvement. The idea that you could also lock down and have separate access into the gym for after hours use. So there's another set of doors there that and a vestibule essentially into the gym, and then having access from that vestibule area to a men's and women's locker room. So there are plumbing and restrooms facilities. Allows the gym to really operate independently from the rest of the building. There's direct access to the gym storage area. Very subtle changes, but we were able to kind of work with our mechanical engineer and make sure that the mechanical space that's serving the gym and this whole kind of original wing of the Concord school, that mechanical room can sit to the south of what is bearing wall that runs in the east-west direction. Subtle changes, but means that that direction allows us to not impact what is already a structural wall. We know the mechanical room will lay out. And then also another request from NCPRD was to really create a larger storage area. So that's directly behind the gym storage. So essentially that gray zone got refined a bit. We pushed back the security doors or the kind of more private zone to the NCPRD admin zone. We pushed those doors further towards the south, assuming that, depending how the restrooms lay out, whether they're gender inclusive or men's and women's, this sort of ability to access the restrooms from the south end is important as well. But we also didn't want to have a really long corridor that's just open to the public. So we're trying to hit that balance. The other area that near the library that changed is next to the elevator, we created a friend's cell area, giving it a real prominent position. And then what used to be at one point, arts and crafts room, where the library expressed some real interest in having a more or less dedicated meeting room space, multi-use space. And so the thought is that from the service point, you would actually be able to look into that room and have visibility there. There would probably be a fair amount of glass around that room. And then next to that, at a certain point, there would be secure storage or secure access into the hallway that leads to the east. And off of that hallway, you could get another point of access to the workroom, perhaps, or certainly also library storage. That's something that has come up recently, especially with the pandemic and the ability to open up the library more and have a place to actually take furniture and store it. Also just other storage needs. So The library now has a dedicated storage room that's next to the mechanical and electrical. Those are kind of the primary highlights there of what we adjusted in the plan.
Hand from, oh, sorry, Jennifer, we've got a hand from Grover. Grover, did you have a question?
I do. It has
Right
to
ahead.
do with, while you still have that picture up, you see the access point from Spalding?
Yes.
Okay, I still have that question and I haven't heard it, I don't say not addressed, but I have a concern that we would, in my opinion, I would love to have more like the option 3 and above version of the park. And if we expanded shifted the dimensions of the actual library. And the reason I bring this up now is because you guys are going to go off and start doing design work, et cetera. And I want to make sure this gets registered, at least for me. If you had the library not stick so far north and you use more of that space to the east and got the same square footage, I'm just hoping we can get something that's a lot more like the 2-acre park that was designed in option 3 and above, because we only have so much room on here. And to have a more of a nature park quality as opposed to an athletic park and having the multiple aspects of having events, et cetera, if this kind of adjustment can be made early as opposed to when you get way deep in there, I want to raise that question again while you have this picture up. I have some other things to talk about later, but this picture shows that space that needs to be negotiated with the county. Are they going to give up that right of way so you could actually move into it?
Yeah, well, I'll just say a couple words. I mean, you know, the exact proportion of the library, yeah, that's something we can look carefully at. There are, you know, just with the furniture and the layout and the different zones of the library, you know, we just want to make sure it works internally. The other kind of key generator is we need to be able to create fire access from the east, and being able to create a hammerhead that works for a fire truck. That's really what's driving this. And then being able to have some sort of buffer between the hammerhead for the fire truck and the building. So there are some real dimensions that are driving and criteria that's driving, you know, the east end of the library addition. But, you know, there's what I would call, you know, tuning this. And, you know, what I'm hearing from you, hey, is there any way that we can push in the north end? Any square footage we can give back to the park would be appreciated. That's
Yes.
something we'll look at. You know, we're just going to have to make sure we also meet the fire lane access criteria. Jennifer, do you want to add to that, or?
Well, all I do want to add is that we have had an initial conversation with the county, and we aren't going to get this right of way. We won't, that belongs to the city, but we are able to use it as a way to do hammerhead for fire access, emergency access. The one thing that they are going to allow us to do, though, is typically at the end of a street, you have to provide a full cul-de-sac turnaround. They did think that because of the use of this property, they will never require us to fully complete that circle, but we will have to be able to provide a fire truck turnaround. So that there are a lot of other considerations, not just park and balance of library. And absolutely, I think as Jim said, the goal is to maximize the park as much as we can, but still provide what's needed for the library and still respect the requirements that we have with the county for right-of-way and setbacks and those sorts of things. So hear it, and we'll note that in the comments that that is definitely preferred path to be looking at as much as we can for the next phase.
Right. And the only point I want to make is I don't care how it gets solved. That just seems like a solution. But to be the difference between option 3 park and 4 and 5 and on up and 2 park, it's significant amount more nature park quality included. And I'm a big fan of that. And I know there's a lot of people who are actually on this call who are also big fans of that. And so if there is a way to do that, and then it's not the county like some foreign body, they're actually the county who also is the library county and the parks county and that county. Oh, and the same taxpayers are all those counties. So I just hope there's some way, but I don't know what the solution is. And I trust you guys are experts, but I want this to be heard and on record, and it didn't show up in the list of suggestions. And this is not my first time to make the suggestion. So, which leads me to the last question I want to ask. I am very interested, don't have to hear the answer now, how, as we go forward between now and 18 months from now, the inclusion of input and then update and input and update and input and update is going to happen. I'll wait for the answer for that later, and I'll mute myself. Thank you.
I think we will get, just so folks know how our proposed process for this evening, we are going to do a round robin to hear from everyone and to get exactly some of those comments that you just noted, Grover, of anything that you think is missing, any comments that you want to be sure are included going forward when this, Catherine will talk through some of the next steps when this draft master plan goes in front of the Board of County Commissioners. So we want to hear from everybody this evening. But please do keep asking any clarifying questions along the way. And Catherine is also going to give an update at the end of the meeting, talking about some of the next steps and opportunities as we go into schematic design. So Mark, you had your hand up, but I think you put it down because we'll get your comments in a little bit. But Christy, you did have a question that you put into the chat asking if there will be restrooms in the lockers. And I'm wondering if Jim or Jennifer's nodding her head. That looks like a yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Great.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so if you do have clarifying questions, folks, feel free to pop them into the chat and I can pause or raise your hand, but we want to hear from everyone today and give you all an opportunity to speak. So that's coming up shortly.
So before we jump, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen in a minute. Before we jump, I just wanted to also note that we did have a discussion about flipping this. So the teen space moved from this area, went to here, and the reception for recreation up here. That gives a better overview of activities of people coming and going, and better than it was back in this corner. So the square footages are very similar, but we just wanted to make everybody aware that that did flip as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and if that's okay, and we can start to get some feedback.
Cool. So I think, Jennifer, can you maybe let folks know if they do have their packets in front of them? I believe that this also had a section kind of that captured task force feedback. What page was that on?
I think that was page 28.
Okay.
It was.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's another question that came up from Mark Elliott in the chat. Do you see public access from the original school entrance?
Jim,
Well, we talked about that the last meeting. There's a lot to be said for having one point of access into the building, which would be primarily at the main access point we're creating at the ground level, because that allows for universal accessibility versus having to ascend up, a whole story with steps. We did talk about there may be exceptions where there's a community events or something happening in the gym specifically, where we certainly want to be able to open up that entry and encourage access. So that there needs to be a way that we can discourage people from typically walking up the stairs to the door to find out that it's locked, whether that probably includes some signage. It may include some landscape treatment that, doesn't have such a direct sidewalk line up to the stairs, but doesn't visually take away from the prominent feature of the stair. So, Yeah, those are all considerations as we move into schematic design, but the general direction is that we would have really one point of entry, and it would be the exception when that upper entry, the existing monumental stair entry, is open to the public.
Thanks, Jim. And there's another question that came in from Kim. If there's going to be a maker or creative space incorporated into the design.
Yeah, that's always been a request. The other room, and it's at this point kind of on the small side, but it's in the south kind of corner, Jennifer, on the floor level 2. I think that's the space that we've been talking about, could be a maker space or arts and crafts room. Guess it would be the southeast corner, yeah, of the second floor. But yes, we understand that that type of space has been talked about for a while. We that's the location we're thinking about right now.
I can zoom in on it if you'd
Oh,
like.
there it is. It's back near the restroom area. And, one of the things, this is a master plan. And so you'll see the restrooms are labeled restrooms as a gray block, and, coming up with a specific layout and code requirement and all that. Hopefully our goal is that perhaps some of that space could even be, dedicated to some other use, especially when we get towards that multi-purpose room. Maybe there's an opportunity to grab some additional space. So this is a kind of a placeholder, but in terms of the other spaces, they're all kind of spoken for. And so that seems like the logical space right now for arts and crafts. And it does have a nice exterior window.
Thanks for that, Jennifer. All right, so I think this is the time where we want to hear from the task force, and maybe also to mark that this is a bit of a transition moment. This is the time when this report will go forward to the Board of County Commissioners. So one of our big objective tonight is to ensure that, especially that task force feedback that I think is on page 28 that Jennifer noted, that reflects the spirit of the conversations that you've had for the past 2 years, and especially the work done with the design team in the past few months in the refinement of the master plan. And to ensure if there's anything missing, if there's something you want to be noted in the comments as, a continuing concern that you have, or something that you feel is mischaracterized, or that you'd like to be attached to those comments from the task force, now is the time to say them and to vocalize them. But it's also an opportunity to, and also I guess with that, I'll note that there's a timeline associated with this, because Catherine and the team have to put this together and get this into board packets and get things, moving in the logistics end of things. But also, if you need some time to process, or you miss a comment and you want to follow up with Catherine, that's also okay to do after the meeting. So it's not your only opportunity, and there will be input points in the future. However, now's the time to let us know if there's something missing or any big red flags in how that task force feedback is characterized. The second thing is it's a transition point. We're moving out of master planning and into schematic design, and the Catherine will talk a little bit more about what we have coming up, but sort of the end of one phase as we go into the beginning of another. And so if you did have any comments that you wanted to share, I know this work has been arduous at times, and this is a group of people that have continuously impressed me with your passion and your dedication and your commitment to bringing not only a library, not only a park and a community center, but all three of those to this community. I mean, this is 3 projects in one, and you have all put in so much time and energy and volunteered all of it. So, I mean, I would want to honor that. And I think we will get to some thank yous later on in our meeting. But also, if you have anything that you want to say to your fellow task members, to the project team, to the folks who've also been attending these meetings and listening in as members of the public, your friends and neighbors, I'm sure, just offer you a little bit of space this evening if you do have any words as we kind of close one phase and open the door to the next. So with that, I'd love to start off with our chair and vice chair. So I'll pass it over to Doug and then Dennis, and then I'll just go around and call folks as I see you on my screen. Yeah, and we'll give everybody a little bit of space this evening. So Doug, over to you. You're muted. I know it had to happen to somebody at least once.
Start that off. Get that over with. Well, I've already kind of had a chance in just getting started to say it was really great to see this master plan draft summarizing all the details of what we've gone through, what the decisions we've made, the things we've considered, deliberated, batted around, all of that. I think we're all pretty excited that this what was option 2 and now is our preferred option is managing to achieve a fair balance between park and library and community center, including the gymnasium. Somebody asked about the theater on the second floor, and I was glad to see that that's still going to be, that space is going to still be preserved, and because that was something that's important to me personally. It was nice to see that, and just how well that is able to be used. It's going to be as with all the other uses that are competing in some ways for this grand but still limited space. That's going to be a big challenge for probably mostly NCPRD to somehow manage to do their best to make as many people as possible happy. And I think we've come up with something that's going to be able to do that to a large extent. There's always going to be something about would have been nice to have this or that, or more of this or more of that. But I feel like that's the main thing I think we can be pleased with, is that we were found an alternative that really does seem to have a pretty nice balance. And so that's my takeaway, I'd say, by and large. Well balanced, but also well with given the constraints that we're up against in 2020 here, especially with as much input as we could get from as many people as we could consider, looking at it from so many angles. I think this team, this task force, each of you individually has their own passions and their own interests, and seeing all that come together, and with being able to fuse all of that diverse points of view has really been helpful in bringing us to where we are now. And so, yeah, I'll just say I'm very proud to be part of this project, and to have gotten to know each of you and the things that you value, and to see where we're similar, and that we're able to come up with something, and that we can also incorporate the differences. So, thanks so much for everybody. On to you, Dennis.
Okay, well said, Doug. You expressed many of the thoughts I was having. I think, first of all, just as we frame 2020, there's not a lot of positive comments being made about this year, but this definitely is one. This is an amazing achievement given the year. And so I think we all should be super proud of where we're at today and the plan going forward. Generally, I've been super impressed. I've been pleased with the work that's gone on, my involvement in this. I think the balance piece, it's worked out fairly well. I guess when I think about, in real life, nothing is ever perfect. Well, maybe my wife is perfect, but things of this magnitude are not. But I think it's damn close. Really, it's really coming together. And although I have less concerns and questions around specifics of things, from this 15,000 feet where I kind of fly, is I'm amazed, and I think it is coming together. And sometimes I think we can get so into the weeds, we forget to step out and take an opportunity to look at, not just the work that's been completed, but the actual product that's coming forward with this. So I'm just super happy to be involved. I mean, in hindsight, this was the perfect year to be involved in something like this, because it really gives you an opportunity to focus and feel like you have purpose in life other than the routine things we generally would have. So I'm thrilled it didn't stall, really. And I just, I appreciate all of you so much. I mean, the bottom line of this thing, lots of hard work has happened here and will continue to happen. And I think the product is showing that. So really appreciative of you all and appreciative of where we're at today. So thank you.
Dennis. Let's continue with Gary.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, I was talking to you.
I thought
Over
it
to
sounded
you,
like
Gary.
my name. I didn't quite hear it.
Apologies.
Okay, sorry. I appreciate all the work that everybody's done on preparing this. This has been a very monumental work. I can appreciate the intricacies of putting all this together, especially for Jim, having to deal with all the constraints and parameters to package all the requests and wishes from everybody. And there are a couple things that I would maybe like to see brought out. Maybe it's not possible at this point, but one is how air handling will be done in the final building. Well, particularly in the Concord School building. I see a lot of small spaces where people might be in close contact, and given what we've been living with and which we will be living with for some time, regardless of a vaccine or not, I think we're going to have this around for some time. And even if it isn't this, it may be something else, another strain of the flu that would be equally bad. And so maybe something be put in there concerning how air handling is done, how filtration is done.
Yep.
And also another area, not to drag this out and going back to seismic problems, but is there any thought to providing rapid evacuation of a building in case of an emergency, any kind of emergency? But when you want people out quick and there's a lot of little rooms and a lot of little corridors, and how do you get them out fast? Something along that line. But I'll just let it go at that.
Gary. Mark Elliott, you're next up on my screen.
Oh, well, thank you, Allison. So I think first I just really wanted to congratulate the design team for really taking to heart the community involvement and, some critical input that we've gotten over the last year. It's not an easy process to go through and working with the public, speaking from experience. And so I really commend you all for, sticking with us and answering all the questions that we've had and really putting your best foot forward in what you created here. And I also, just being new to this community, I'm just really aware of how many people have been working on this project for many years and how hard they've worked and for how long. And so I feel very privileged to be able to be working on this as a new member of the community. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you who have been working on this for so very long. I think we'll all be hearing that being said a lot over the next few years. I had just a couple of thoughts that came to mind as I went through the report. I think there were some new things that came out of the report that that transpired as the design team was making progress. so I just wanted to mention a couple of those. And they really have to do with my thinking is when you go through this kind of step-by-step process, you're always kind of aware of like what's out there that could really impact this project negatively. You know, what could have an impact on it that could put a roadblock in our progress. And that can be money issues, it can be jurisdictional issues, and all kinds of other things. And so there were a couple of them that came to mind to me that I'm sure you guys are going to work through as we go into the next phase. And so I just wanted to mention a couple of those. I think first, there's some reference to potential changes to Concord Road to add a centered left turn lane. And I think that's a great idea. My fear is who the heck is going to pay for that? So is that worked into our numbers? Probably not. And so I think that's a critical issue that will have to be addressed about what we have to do and who in the heck is going to pay for it if it's going to come out of our budget to do that. The other is the zoning ordinance resolution on the issue of office space. I imagine that can be worked out, but that is, again, a jurisdictional hurdle that takes time and effort. And I know that, again, there will be a lot of smart people working on that, but that was kind of a red flag that came up for me that I thought, again, you probably had to work through. One thing I thought perhaps that could be added to our task force feedback is that we had some comments from folks about the desire to have performance space here, and I think we are saving the stage. My having been involved in community theater, there's always an issue of sharing a space with somebody else. And I think for community members, they're usually doing all of their rehearsal space about the same time everybody else wants to use the space. And so I think in terms of if we're having a community theater group here and they want to put on a production, they are going to be having to compete with those who want to use the gym at the same time. And I don't see those two things being compatible with each other. And so what my thought was that there is currently a very nice rehearsal space right underneath the stage, and there's also really good access to it. And one of my thoughts was if there was a way in order to maintain that rehearsal space underneath the stage, that would make it easier for an organization that's going to do a production to be able to use that rehearsal space during the 2 or 3 months that they put a production together without having to have exclusive use of the gym upstairs. So I just thought that's something that we might want to think about as we move into the next phase about how we might be able to accommodate both the rehearsal needs as well as those who want to use the gym for other purposes. So I think those are my comments, and again, appreciate everybody's help.
Thanks, Mark. All right, I've got Paul and then Christy next up on my screen.
Thank you, Allison. Yeah, I came into this process a little later, and I'm very impressed with the product of the master plan document and the planning document that we've seen so far. So I really don't have any comments on that. I appreciate all the hard work that went into it before I joined the committee or the task force, and I certainly am in awe about how that was all translated into the 3 to 5 options to 7 options, and then narrowed down to almost unanimous choice with what I think is a terrific solution at this stage of the game. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it develops over the next couple of years, and I'm really excited about getting this thing done. So thank you, everybody, and thank you to the design team.
Paul, Christy?
I want to kind of pony up on what Doug and Dennis talked about. Thank you for the time and effort that everyone put into delivering the special package today to us before the meeting, and thank you to the team, and thank you for all the hard work that everyone's put into this. as far as the plan and looking at the task force feedback, the only thing that stood out for me was addressing community needs, which like Mark brought up, one of them is the space to do performances. And for me, the one that stands out is the soccer field needs. And while I am a huge advocate for space for athletics and for our kids' sports in the area, which has not enough space to begin with in the area, we don't have enough fields. I do want to follow what the feedback has been from the community, and I'm not sure that those two align 100%. And so when there's verbiage in here about avoiding to try to do too much within the limited site area to allow for the best success, I believe it was Chanda that brought that up about, you know, are we trying to cram too much into one space? And so I just want to make sure that I have said this out loud, and I've talked to Scott previously about this and Catherine previously about this, that as long as there is a place to replace this field, should there not end up being a soccer field for the soccer program, as long as we find another place to replace that field, the community will get behind that. But if there's an issue with designing the soccer field and the space, that it needs to be a park and it needs to be green space for the community to use, and it's not going to have the specs to be a soccer field, then at least can we make an effort and have a commitment from the Parks and Rec department or the county, I'm not sure who, to come up with some space to replace that, is all I want to make sure is said. And then I didn't know if maybe we needed to add in this any verbiage saying that we wanted to address community concerns and needs for, like, say, the pickleball group that came in, and there was the soccer group, and there was the actors that came in. So I'm not sure if we want to add verbiage for that, but that was just something that popped in my head, that I know we as a group want to support and try and fulfill everyone's needs. And I want to thank the design team for being creative with their spaces, because they did try to fulfill everyone's needs and create multifunctional spaces for everyone. And so the public hears that also, that a lot of this is making a multi-use out of one area to fill all of those needs. But anyhow, I'm done rambling.
You're not rambling. That was totally awesome. Thank you, Christy. All right, Ron Campbell, you're next up on my screen.
Thank you. Well, first of all, overall, I think that the issues and the needs and the values have been covered very well in what was actually a fairly complicated project. I'm sure you agree with that. Covered very well, both in process and product. You know, that is my overall impression, and I congratulate you for that. I have read the entire document word for word, and I did, look through the changes that have been made to the preferred option floor plan, and didn't really feel a need to second guess any of those. I knew that there would be explanations of those, and I also realized that there is more refinement to come, and I look forward to seeing that. So I decided I wasn't going to dwell on any of those changes in particular, because I know that is being well covered. I did want to say I really appreciated the language, although it needed to be brief. I do understand that the language on page 6 under the executive summary that speaks to the importance of this property, this resource to the community. You really did get it. You nailed it. It was spot on. And I think that's very important to acknowledge that, because this has been a long time coming, and the community is very passionate about this overall. It also shows up in the language on page 16, where the discussion is about the historic significance, and mention there of the property's legacy and how the community has long-standing ties. So overall, just the overall importance of this project and this property and what's to be done with it is huge, so I congratulate you for that. I think you did a very commendable job of that. So I did have a few minor things to say here, and I imagine you probably already realized them, but one question I had is the Park Avenue station really 3 miles from Concord? That seems like it's probably close to twice as far, under the impression I've had, but I haven't actually measured it. So that's more a question. You don't have to answer that right now. On page 19, this is a minor point too. The aerial perspective is not southeast, it's northeast or northwest, I'm sorry. So just a typo there. And just a couple more typos, page 20, clear story is used several times, spelled 2 different ways. And I know what the correct spelling is, but thought you might want to correct that. And then, so that's it for the nitpicking. But I also wanted to speak to the to land use approval, which I believe it was Mark speaking to this as well. First of all, this approval that the Board of Commissioners is going to be asked for at their policy session, I guess it's a policy session coming up. I presume that is kind of a nod to go forward, nothing in terms of a formal approval or adoption of a resolution or anything of that nature. Maybe you can speak to that, and then following that, of course, will be a land use process, which results in a more formal approval. And I'd like to underscore what Mark was saying about the time involved in that land use approval. It's very probable that a zone change is going to be needed, and zone changes typically take a minimum of 6 months. Clackamas County is understaffed, and we don't know at this point exactly how complicated that may be. 6 months may be a little optimistic. Actually, I think what the document says is, fall until spring. Before construction can actually begin. Fall until spring, for a permitting process. That might be a little too optimistic. I hope not. I hope it can move that forward that fast. But I'm not real sure about that because it can be a bit complicated. And finally, the only thing other thing I really wanted to speak to was I noticed that the acknowledgement page is going to be added. And acknowledgements in a document like this really have to do mostly with, people or organizations that have had direct input or indirect input in some cases into the production of the master plan document. But I wanted to call attention to something that I think is really important to this project. And that is I don't know how many people in this group or how many people overall really understand what kind of a sacrifice the school district has made. Without the school district and a couple of major decisions that the school board made, made this possible. As much as the Parks District and the county overall acquisition of this property, of course, made this possible. But I don't know how many people know what contribution the school district has made here. Number one, the school district was taking steps that apparently were geared towards selling this property after the school was closed, shortly after the school was closed. And they took public input. They were doing their due diligence and so on. But it was fairly clear that their intent was to sell this property. It could have ended up in private sector hands. It could now be an apartment complex. There was one private developer that specializes in preservation and repurposing of historic buildings that had an interest and was ready to put money on the table to purchase it right away. But it would not have been in community ownership, and it would not have the community benefits that are being provided as part of this project. Even knowing that, and with the input from the community to the school district on how important it is to wait, just hold off, don't make any decisions right now. Let the community come up with some kind of a strategy that addresses community needs, because the community recognized the importance at that time, the importance to the community. At that time, the school district, school board didn't really have that same level of recognition. And it was the community that put forward the input to convince the school board to hold off, don't make a decision yet, let the community explore strategies for keeping this in public ownership and repurposing it for the benefit of the local community. So they made a decision to delay any action for 2 years, and they maintained the property through that time frame. That was huge. And 2 years later, after the Parks District and the county had negotiated with the school district through their staff, came up with a plan for a property trade. And then the school board's second major decision that supported this community was to approve that property trade. I don't know how many people really recognize what they did here. But there was a comment made by the chair at the time when that decision to approve that trade was made that has stuck with me all this time. And that is when Rain Vaga, who was then chair of the school board, said publicly, Concord School is the heart and soul of this community. And that has stuck with me all this time. My point here is that acknowledgements usually are not for this purpose, but I would suggest maybe giving some consideration to acknowledging the school district staff who worked on this and the school board members who were involved in those two decisions, to give them some acknowledgement for what they have done to support this effort. I'll stop there, but actually, I intend to do just that, on behalf of the Concord Partnership, is to acknowledge the school district and the school board and thank them for that. I think it would be appropriate to maybe stray from the purpose of an acknowledgements page a little bit and just provide that acknowledgement for them as well.
Thanks,
So
Ron.
I'll leave it at that. And once again, thank you all for your efforts here.
Thanks, Ron. Kim, you're next on my screen. Over to you.
Well, I'll just echo what everybody else has been saying, that I've only been involved in this project for about a year at this point, but it feels extremely significant. I'm extremely proud of the work everybody's been doing. I think it's a wonderful project. I'm really excited to have this in the community. I think it's going to change the entire feel of the community, and everybody I speak to about it is really excited about it. The design team, you're doing amazing work and you're so patient. I don't know how you do it. I couldn't do it personally. The one comment that I wanted to make, and this is, really listening to community feedback, but also from a personal perspective, I grew up going to a community center and taking dance classes and art classes and doing community theater, and pottery and things like that. In my mind, and this is not reflective of what everybody's been discussing here, and maybe this is only my opinion, but I think there's some community feedback to share it. This project, yes, we don't want to do too much. It's better to focus on a couple key things and do them very well. And I think that's been stated a couple times, but in my mind, it's serving the purpose of library, athleticism, whether that be soccer fields or pickleball or any of those things, a park, and then creative and community event spaces. And I just want to make sure, I think that you've done very well with multi-purpose spaces. And, I love this community meeting room with the foldable walls and the kitchen and those kind of things. But I think it's easy to forget about the creative and the arts and all of this. And maybe it's something that can be addressed in design down the line, like interior design, like if you're adding cabinets to a room for a certain purpose, like these are all things that maybe don't need to be addressed right this second. But echoing like the performance space, rehearsal space, art space, these are all really valuable, valid pieces of a community. And I just want to make sure that we don't end up becoming the sports complex and library. So just keeping it in your mind is all I ask as you go through this design process, that there's a whole contingent of the geeky artist kids and the people who do community theater. And, what are we fighting for in this world if we don't have the arts? This is what we all do with our time when we're not working, is, reading literature, or, painting a picture, or going and practicing photography. Like we should still focus on that need in the community as well. And I know you are, but just continuing to think in that vein would be great. Thank you all.
Kim, thanks for that. Excuse me, Mike Schmier, you're next on my screen. Over to you.
Well, I can't add a whole lot more than everybody else has said. I've thoroughly enjoyed working with everybody on this task force. I'm very impressed with county staff. I'm very impressed with the community task force members that I've been working with. I feel like I've made friends in this process and hope to continue those relationships. And I'm very impressed with OPSIS and all the expertise in that group. And you guys are terrific, and very, very happy that we're able to get you on board. I know I'm not a Bill Nye the Science guy, but I am Mike Schmier the history guy, and my particular interest, of course, in this has been historic context, and I'm very proud to have had the opportunity to help provide historic context to this project, and I look forward to continuing having a role in the history of the property and the building as we move forward. So I'm very pleased. As I read through the thing we got delivered to our door on page 17, when I was reading through it, I couldn't see anything at first about a history space in the school, but all I had to do was turn the page and there it was. So I'm glad we're still thinking of providing a history space somewhere in the floor plan, and excited to think ahead that we will be able to, the sorts of things that we'll be able to put in that space. So I'm very pleased, and I want to thank all of you for everything that you've done so far and that we'll continue to be doing in the future. So that's it.
Thanks, Mike. And I will say a special shout out to Mike's commitment to backgrounds and hats throughout this process. It's brought a bit of levity and he's trying it on certain times. So thank you, Mike. How about over to, I feel like we always get Shonda last, but Shonda, why don't we go over to you so that you're not the last on our list?
Can you hear me, or am I muted?
I sure can. No, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I have a few reiterations of what people have already said. Congratulations to the design team and the county staff. This is exciting. This booklet came and it was like candy. I mean, it was really nice to read all of this and see what we've done, what we've accomplished, and kind of the path forward to something that this community has needed for so long. And I'm thankful for everyone that's been on the team that has put in their information, and I think all of our issues and needs have been covered very well. I agree with Kim about don't forget about the arts. And in conjunction with that, I have a question possibility. You don't really see it as well in this draft proposal as much as you did in the original. but the outside of the library addition next to the Concord building, it seems like there's lots of glass, and then there are brick stanchions or, you know, wall pieces. I don't know what to call them really. And I'm wondering if that could be flipped so that you have the solidity of Concord School Building and then a little bit more of the solidity of the library that gradually phases into glass, which phases into the natural park area. I think it would be a little bit more visually and artistic appealing, but I have no concept of if it would structurally work. Other than that, I'm really happy with what's going on here. It's just great.
Thank you for that, Shonda. Glad that you're here. Thank you for your comments. How about over to Grover next?
Okay, thank you. I actually do want to start with acknowledging it's been a long road, and I really appreciate the input of the various staff people, the various other task force members, speaking up of the different ideas. And I am also thrilled with what the end result based on the inputs of all those folks. So that being said, I have nothing of significance that hasn't been spoken already, other than I did notice on page 28 that we talked to where the stuff is, it only makes a mention of kitchen layout support community needs. And I wanted to make sure that it's included in that the request had been made, and Rose also had echoed that, and I can't remember who else, was the distinction between a catering kitchen, I don't know the answer to this, and a commercial kitchen. So the importance that I've working in many entrepreneurial areas of lower income, et cetera, where people are trying to get a leg up, having a commercial kitchen to work with and around and through is distinctly different than the kitchen, let's say, that's at the Oregon City Library. So I just, as long as that distinction's there, I'm very good. And the other is the only thing it says about next steps, it doesn't talk a bit about our participation and our being able to be updated, and I'll look forward to hearing about that. Other than that, really, thanks to everyone for a lot of work, and I'm thrilled with where we are. Thank you.
Grover. How about over to Michael Newgard? Then Rose will take us home.
First off, I'd really like to acknowledge Allison, Catherine, thank you for organizing us. Jennifer, Jim, really have loved the product that you have put out for us in these packets. Phenomenal. And then Doug and Dennis, thank you for being our fearless leaders through this so far. I mean, I wasn't sure what to expect through this whole process. I had a real vested interest with the apartment buildings I own across the street, my residence. And I'm just really happy how all of this has turned out, considering with all the passions from all sorts of different groups of people and what they wanted out of this. And I've just been really impressed with how respectful and inclusive everybody has into bringing all these ideas together and what it's turned into. I mean, phenomenal job to everybody in here. And considering all the crazy things 2020 has brought us. I mean, look at the platform we're having our meeting on and how much we're getting done on here. It just blows me away. And I constantly have found myself with this group beaten to the punch on things that I would have liked to have said that have already been addressed by somebody in a comment, an email, or whatever. And I've just been able to watch a lot and just say, well, they already threw that in there. So my biggest things coming into this for the sports field and the seismic issues, and Gary's been our resident expert on that, and I've really appreciated his comments, and I wanted to acknowledge him for that. And I've just been really happy, and I'm thrilled to see what this is going to do for our community. And as we like to say in aviation, when we're setting up for final approach, I really think we're on the glide path for the runway here. It looks great to me. So, thank you all.
Thank you, Michael. Rose, over to you.
Okay. Well, let's see. I again want to just echo all of the comments from this amazing task force. I came in also at a time that I thought was really exciting, just to be a part of the design alternative review and being able to make those recommendations. I was particularly interested in this project because of my experience living in Multnomah Village when I first moved to Portland, and had the tremendous benefit of using the Multnomah Art Center constantly. I was a young mom with a son, and we spent so much time there and were able to connect with all of our neighbors and the community at large. And I cannot think of a better venue that this community needs right now than one that will bring people together and enjoy life, because I think that's what it's all about. So thank you all. And I am just amazed with the design team that has been working on this. It's always challenging working through a public process. I describe it sometimes, it's like watching paint dry. But I know it's really important also for the community, and also to make sure that everybody's voice is heard in the process. So I just really value that as well. We just need a lot of patience to get through it. And we obviously have it. And thank you, Doug, for leading us through this process. I think you're just great. And you know, I like you. And you're a good person. And anyway, thank you all. It's been really fun to be a part of this process.
Thank you, Rose. And thank you all for your comments. I think we have about 10-ish minutes left in our agenda. So Catherine, if you want to run us through some next steps, and then Doug, if you're okay, we can get some public comment in there before the end of the meeting. Okay, Catherine, over to you.
Okay. Well, I really like the idea that we're on the glide path. That's really very descriptive. I really like that a lot. I have to say, I really appreciate all of you so much. Thank you so much for your time and your energy. And oh my gosh, it's been 24 steering task force meetings, and I just can't believe that we have so much positive feedback and constructive feedback. And your work is not done. However, we're going to see you soon in 2021. So what comes next on this is we are going to collect the comments that we heard here tonight. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We're going to collect your comments. We are going to pick them up in the report. We're going to look for all the missed words, misspellings, maybe some grammatical errors that will get fixed in the next few days. And then we are taking the report to our Board of County Commissioners with your recommendation, because that's what your job has been, is to make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. So we're doing that on the 24th of November at 2:15. Our fearless leader, Doug, has agreed to come and speak at that time, along with the task force chair from the Gladstone Library Planning Task Force. And they will approve they will consider the report. And I'm sure that with such glowing reports from all of you that it will be approved. So after that, we're going to deliver you a report in living color for your library. And it will also be the springboard from which we begin our work in 2021. So after the board meeting, Jennifer and Jim and I are going to put our heads together and come up with the scope of work that is going to take us home all the way through construction. This first phase of the work was a year-long process, a little bit more for the master plan. We have done our work. You have done most of the work. And now we have to go through schematic design, through construction documentation and the land use process, and turn this into a real building project park, and a place to recreate and do all the things we want to do there, read books. So that work, we will get the scope of work. We will have a public engagement process, which we will outline to you in probably January or February when we get it together. We anticipate continuing to meet with you at least quarterly, if not more. What I anticipate will happen is the first phase of schematic design will be a little bit more engagement with you. And then as we move forward, there will be less engagement. But we will stay engaged with you at least quarterly throughout the entire process. And we are still anticipating construction beginning in spring of 2022. So I think we've been very consistent about that date. We have no reason to think we can't meet that date yet. We are also, as you know, hoping that the Gladstone project stays on that same timeline. So the goal is, as it has been, that this is a joint project and those two projects will move together in a similar timeline. If it doesn't, we'll certainly let you know. Did I miss anything? Oh yeah, so we were going to have the ability for you to make any public comment at a Board of County Commissioners meeting, business meeting, but that was on the 19th and it got canceled. So that's not going to work. So what I'm going to do right now is send you in the chat a place where you can send an email if you wish to make specific comments to the Board of County Commissioners. So feel free to do that. They get that through the BCC mail at clackamas.us. And I'm sure they would love to hear your comments. And we will also be passing along your comments in our board report to them, as well as our presentation to them. And Doug can be your leader for that part of the program. Did I miss anything? Jennifer, Allison, Jim, Ray? Okay.
Catherine. Doug, time for public comment? Oh, I think you're muted. I know.
Just so excited. So yeah, now I thought I had seen a hand up earlier in public comments, but I don't see one now.
Yeah, okay, I see one. Folks, if you do have public comment, you can go ahead and raise your hand. We typically do about 3 minutes per comment, and I might give you a gentle reminder if we're getting close to that. But I see a couple of hands, so we'll start off with Jeffrey. So Jeffrey, you are up for comments. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, sounds good. Go right ahead.
Great. Hey, sorry to have to go so far back in the meeting, but it was early on when Jim was giving us kind of a recap on some of the changes that had been done with the building. Just a couple of comments on some of the things that were said. Jim, you had mentioned something about bathrooms and about whether or not they were going to be binary or gender inclusive. Reality is bathrooms have to be gender inclusive. That's just the way the life is. I think it would be in the best interest in this early on in the design phase to make sure that flow is as easy as possible for people to make the decision to use the bathroom that they feel most comfortable with and empowered to do so. And then along the lines of bathrooms, it'd be great to have a family specific bathroom, even one with like little toilets and a place that's kind of quiet and calm to be able to escape, to be able to soothe a small child if need be. And if a mother chooses to breastfeed in private, perhaps be able to provide that space as well. And then lastly, you made a comment about the Monumental Staircase. I totally understand the need for, having one point of entry. And I really want to make sure that whatever is done to kind of give the right type of social and architectural cues that people use the one entrance is that we really don't create a situation where the monumental entrance becomes a subordinate entrance in any sort of way, if that makes sense. Like in essence, to try and keep and preserve as much of its majesty as possible moving forward, right. Including something as simple as its sight line going all the way back to McLaughlin, if possible as well. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Jeffrey. Great. Next up, we've got two more hands. So Richard, can you hear us?
Okay, I got it.
Hi,
I
go right ahead.
thank all of you for the tremendous effort that you guys have all done. I have to tell you, as a recent resident, I guess it's almost a year and a half now. I got involved in this because I care about the community, and you all know that I care about theater. But everybody's been kind, and I wrote a note. I've been involved in municipal efforts for 50 years, and I've never seen a group work as well together and come to a conclusion, or even a partial conclusion, as you've gone so far. You've outdone any expectations I ever had for a public group, and I'm glad to be a member of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, and thanks for joining us this evening. All right, next up we have Ginger. Ginger, can you hear us? You're up next. Ginger, if you're speaking, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Oh, there.
Hi, hello, go right ahead.
Hi, thank you. I am so impressed by everything that's gone on with this task force. It's just amazing. I want to also thank my neighbor Jeffrey for mentioning things that are relevant to families with children who are younger than 5, because they are members of the community as well. And I look forward to learning more about how this task force has addressed the issues of that group, or if there are any ways we can do some interior alterations to make sure that they're accommodated. One that comes to mind really quickly is stroller parking for gatherings with those families, but the ability to have a quiet space and also to have toddler size toilets is also very important for this group. And then they can take part in all sorts of activities that enhance life for families with those little ones. I also look forward to any opportunity for design for outdoor play space for this age group. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginger, and thank you for joining us this evening. All right, those are all the hands I see. So I think with that, we'll close public comment, and I'll hand it back over to you, Doug. It's one more time, you're muted. Sorry.
I was just looking at Rose's comment, but I'll try and make sure and catch that later. Just want to make sure she knows that we all are seeing that. Yeah, I think, this is one of the exciting things about this project is with all the different interests in here, I think Mitzi will be one of the first to say, a library is always going to make sure that the youngest in our community are well accommodated, including all the strollers and such, that as much as sometimes that's the challenge, but they're going to be among the most welcome in a library space for sure. And we'll want to make sure that the entire community center and of course the park is accessible as much as possible for all ages, from 0 to 100. Anyway, so thanks again for everybody for your time this evening, for your time in this last couple of years. Has it really been 24 meetings? Is that what you counted, Catherine?
Yep.
I guess it sounds about right. We jammed quite a few in there. Yeah, and I think it was said earlier, I do really appreciate how well this group adapted to this virtual meeting space. I was really anxious myself about the effectiveness of it, and I think everybody adapted and rolled right along with it, and without much of a hitch at all in the process. So that's again another thing that I think we can all be proud of, and that I'm certainly happy to have seen come about. So until whenever is next time, 2021, I suppose I was going to pop my bubbles.
Oh, there we go.
Cheers to all of you.
And Doug,
enjoy your holidays. Happy New Year. And we'll catch you next time. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Doug. Cheers.
Enjoy your wine.